So this is Duncan Lievi, and this is the Raw review with selective focus on specific angles. It is the post-WrestleMania Raw after WrestleMania 42. I did not do a Night 2 review. Just too many things to do in general. However, Night 2 is far superior in quality and consistency compared to Night 1, and both nights suffered from a very great focus on advertising. The running joke is that WrestleMania was basically the advertisement for the Hulk Hogan documentary and the blank screen with the minimal animations that was playing before the show got back. Netflix had that counter at the top right, which was telling you how far you are from returning to WrestleMania, and that was far greater a proportion of time compared to WrestleManias of times past. Anyway, now let's return to Raw. We start with Obafemi, dressed to the nines, looking very, very sharp, who comes out to amazing fanfare after having seemingly retired Brock Lesnar. Now, is that going to stick? Cannot be very sure about any of those things because Saudi Arabia will have WrestleMania next year, and SummerSlam will be in Minnesota, which was primed to be the original retirement site of one Brock Lesnar at the hands of the career killer. And maybe he just called an audible after Obafemi won the match. He felt, he being Brock, felt that he had done the service that required to be done. On a side note, honestly, if I can go on a tangent here, Brock Lesnar has been held up on the back of so many good deeds done for him, primary being Undertaker, who lost the streak to Brock unnecessarily in my eyes and in the eyes of many people. Then he has been given the rub so many times by people like Kurt Angle, The Rock, Triple H, John Cena. It's just so many people have had to lay down for Brock Lesnar, often unnecessarily, as if Brock needs to get the rub at this stage of his career. It was good to see Brock do the same for someone for a change, not named Roman Reigns. As for whether this is the end of Brock Lesnar's career, I believe it could be, because the man was crying. It is the first time we've seen this vulnerable side of Brock Lesnar. Well, not we, definitely I. So it remains to be seen whether he does a U-turn on his decision. He had said in an interview that he was back to the WWE for only a very short time, and he also cited some financial issues, so I'm not sure how far he is removed from those financial issues. If he's not totally past that, there's every reason to believe that he will be back sooner rather than later for a quick paycheck, the likes of which he would receive from Saudi Arabia next year. So we'll see. Obafemi comes out of the start of Raw, and he says, after a lot of delay, because this is Obafemi's Roman Reigns moment of, this is my yard now, only without the 8 minutes of hatred being poured out from the live crowd, when the post-WrestleMania crowd was still a post-WrestleMania crowd. This is a neutered version of post-WrestleMania vibes. Las Vegas is not the most raucous crowd, as is witnessed by these segments. However, it is also a reverse reaction compared to Roman Reigns, who came out to a smattering of boos. Obafemi came out to cheers. Lots and lots of cheers. He says, and I quote, "Your ruler has arrived." And the way he says it, with his classic accent, "Your ruler has arrived." And he exits stage right. Very short, very sweet. I would have preferred him to have said a few more things, because he can actually work the mic. However, they went for the mic drop moment. It would be nice to get a little bit more acquainted with the man who seemingly retired the beast. Anyway, I suppose that time is going to come sooner rather than later. Then we make our way to Rhea Ripley and Io Sky defeating the Kabuki Warriors in a tag match. Well, considering that Rhea Ripley and Io Sky are good friends and have some established history as a tag team, them defeating Kabuki Warriors, who are definitely a regular tag team, seemed forgivable in a way. What is not forgivable is Io Sky being left off the WrestleMania card. However, there is probably a world where it is better that they were not featured on WrestleMania, because it seemed that if they had a match, then they would be cursed just like 80% of matches at WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2, insofar as they'd be given, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes to blow off a feud which has been brewing for far longer than a year, or probably just around a year. So, in a way, we should count our blessings. It's a blessing in disguise that we did not get Io Sky versus Asuka at WrestleMania. Okay, I'm primarily going to go over the action and the story, the storylines, not the action, since I don't recall too much of it. That probably is a metaphor for how little wrestling actually goes on these shows these days. Anyhow, Io Sky did land on her head again, which is getting ridiculous. She's tempting fate, or just luck is extremely against her at the moment. It is sad to see, because you never want to see something like that in the first place, and then because it is happening so often, it is not going to be surprising if it actually results in an injury, which I hope it never comes to. Okay, then we go to the most bizarre segment, akin to that bizarre segment before WrestleMania on SmackDown that these two gentlemen shared, them being CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. Very, very bizarre segment. I cannot really frame it as bizarre for the duration of the promo that CM Punk was out, because that was very cogent, very well delivered, very comprehensive. He recalled the match that he had with Roman Reigns. He recalled his past year, I believe, or a particular past duration where he has had to deal with a lot of loss. Some friends, Larry passed away, across the Rainbow Bridge. He also brought attention to the fans being a way for him to cathartically move past those losses, all of which were far greater a loss to him compared to the main event that he lost, which also resulted in him losing the WWE World Heavyweight Championship to Roman Reigns. He believed that he had proven himself once and for all, I believe, after having such a great showing at Night 2's main event, and he has every right to be very proud of it. It just wasn't his night. I was very, very complimentary of that match as well. I did watch it. The symbolic inability that Punk showed after lifting Roman Reigns for the second GTS and then crumbling beneath Reigns, symbolically crumbling under the weight of expectations, was nothing that I was too happy to see. However, it was poetic, and then Reigns took advantage and beat Punk clean. Punk had every opportunity to not even want to hoist Reigns up for that second GTS. He could have just gone for the pin, and he didn't. That seemed like a missed opportunity to me. However, the match overall was among the best in recent memory. Now, Punk was showing pride for his main event at WrestleMania. Then out comes... Okay, well, I have to share that one other thing, that Punk announced that he will not be taking time off, contrary to a lot of reports and contrary to what a lot of people expected out of Punk. Respect to CM Punk, because he is actually living up to his word of being a fighting champion, a consistent presence on Raw, even though I believe that he might be headed to SmackDown sooner rather than later. Before you know it, though, when Punk is saying he's going to hang around because you never know when a world championship opportunity might fall out of the sky or into your lap, guess who comes out? Recently, seemingly injured WWE Undisputed Champion Cody Rhodes, who comes out with a very downtrodden, down on his luck, defeated, subdued vibe. He is the world champion still. He won the match, and he comments on how he feels like a loser. Punk and Cody have, I believe, another off-the-cuff interaction where both of them discuss why they're feeling the way they're feeling. Punk, even though he lost the match, is not feeling nearly as down as Cody seems to be. The most prominent visual of this interaction is clearly Cody's left eye, which is completely black toward the side after receiving that punt from Randy Orton. Or was it a punch from Randy Orton? Whichever one it is, the eye does not look great. And, well, I believe that Cody should not have come out here anyhow, considering that the punt is supposed to be a move that writes people out of television or off of television for a few weeks. Then again, I think practically Backlash is in 3 weeks, so they might need Cody on screen and Orton on screen on SmackDown to build to their seemingly likely rematch. So in that sense, all right. And yet, Cody, even though he walked slow and did not have any physicality, it seemed that the punt has lost its luster. If you look at this channel, the most watched video on this channel is me speaking off the cuff about the punt and how it symbolically represents some magic that WWE used to have, and it also shows a pattern where magic has been lost, where things that were special have been booked to lose their special quality in favor of just moments and excess. Anyhow, getting back to that promo, that bizarre promo, Punk continues his thread of saying, you never know when a championship opportunity might fall from the sky, and he's specifically locking eyes, or well, looking deep into the world championship in the hands of Cody Rhodes. Punk then exits, and Cody Rhodes proceeds to say, just say when, foreshadowing a match between the two, obviously. I believe it could be WrestleMania next year. It does not look like that's happening in the near future, even though I believe it did also signal that CM Punk might be done with Raw, considering he has mostly feuded with almost everyone that he could conceivably have a feud with, even though I was not at all happy with the timing of the program between Finn Balor and CM Punk. Those two could have actually burned the house down on a couple more occasions where he could have wrestled. I mean, they could have wrestled a far better program without the burden of the predictability being very, very strong, considering that happened right before WrestleMania. The main event was already set, and the only unlikely scenario was that Punk gets defeated by Balor, and your WrestleMania main event becomes Balor versus Roman Reigns, which was never going to happen at all. Anyhow, so if Punk gets shipped over to SmackDown, it might lead to a lot of those possibilities and fantasy booking opportunities, including Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, maybe hopefully a returning Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, with CM Punk, a fresh bunch of people with whom many of whom have had history with Punk. So that part of the equation is very exciting. Moving on to Ethan Page versus Javon Evans. They both shared a backstage segment centered around the Intercontinental Championship, and your champions, Zero Miedo was also there, Penta. So it led to a match between a debuting Ethan Page and Javon Evans. Good match between the two. It'll be interesting to see what Ethan Page does. He's been ready for the main roster for the majority of the time that he spent in NXT, and yet he was just following tradition by heading down there to begin with, and now he's in the main roster. So we'll see. Now, the Bulgarian Brute attacked Evans, bringing the Intercontinental Champion Penta to the rescue. However, Page helped Rusev gained the advantage and allowed Rusev to lock the title holder in the accolade. So there are some storytelling devices that are being set up where Ethan Page is clearly the heel, and he helped Rusev get a strong position at the end of this segment where he was locking Penta in the accolade. It's good to see Rusev being ruthless and dominant for a change, even though he has not wrestled nearly as much as one would expect in recent times. Then we go to one of the highlights of the show for me. Sol Ruca made a debut, or executed a successful debut, not in terms of the result of the match. Just the first impression is pretty clear. Visually, Sol Ruca gives off the athletic vibe, which you clearly see in her moveset as well. She will be very, very exciting as a presence on the women's roster, most likely, unless she's just booked horribly ineptly, which is completely on the cards once in a while, at the very least. Now, she had a match against Liv Morgan, impromptu matchup. I believe Sol Ruca is going to have a match against, who is this? Zarya soon on NXT, after which I believe Sol Ruca will cement officially her call up to the main roster. So Zarya inevitably interrupts this matchup, costing Sol Ruca the match. Before that, though, Sol Ruca had delivered her amazing finish, something catcher, I forget, is it the Dream Catcher, the name? Very impressive move, and Liv was present enough after the move to roll out of the ring, a veteran instinct, as Michael Cole would call it. Ultimately, after the attack by Zarya on Sol Ruca, Liv Morgan, your new women's world champion, capitalized by delivering finisher, where she jumps onto the middle rope and hits her opponent, or slams her opponent onto the mat head first. So that was the end of that match. Liv secured the victory, and Sol Ruca was introduced to the main roster audience of WWE Raw. Right after that, you've got the Vision's promo in the middle of the ring. Paul Heyman is addressing Brock Lesnar's positioning in the introductory portion of WWE Raw, or WWE events in general, where Brock Lesnar is still shown in the Now segment, and he basically confirms Brock Lesnar's retirement and tells the people in the back in the truck to put Brock Lesnar in the Forever segment, which basically means that Brock Lesnar, who was slated to be on this episode of Raw, that he's probably retired. And we'll wait and see whether my conspiracy, or whether I would not say conspiracy, speculation regarding his return might come to fruition or not. So we'll see. Street Profits return to spark a brawl with the Vision's Logan Paul and Austin Theory. So after doing that part about Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman shifts focus to the tag team division, and he claims that the tag team division has been flowering, which does not seem to be the case. Braun Breaker returns to join forces again with Paul Heyman. However, Seth Rollins soon is back in the fold, and I'm not sure where exactly it happens. I was not paying attention around this time. There was a bit where Seth Rollins had hit Braun Breaker at the back of the head with a chair a little recklessly, resulting in some blood. Braun Breaker got back at Seth Rollins and gained the upper hand by the end of the segment. And Seth Rollins attempted to attack the Vision, but was thwarted by Braun Breaker. So this is another trend which I hope gets reversed for Seth Rollins. Seth was attacked by Braun Breaker almost exactly a year ago. And then since that time, Seth has not really been able to get back at Braun Breaker. However, Braun Breaker has gotten back at Seth 2 times. This has been facilitated by unfortunate sequencing of events, because Braun was out of action when Seth returned, which would have been the time when Seth got back at Braun Breaker, and Seth got into a program with Gunther, and in the match against Gunther, Braun Breaker returned and cost Seth the match. So Seth never really got back at Braun for Braun's betrayal at the Raw after WrestleMania of last year. So that is something that remains to be seen, how they'll pay this off exactly, because Braun, being the younger star, would most likely, predictably, be the one to be put over at the end of it. However, that means that Seth is perpetually getting the L more often than not. Finn Balor, sporting a far younger look, I believe he's cut the beard far shorter, and he's got this shade going on till the middle of his chin. Makes him look younger, more agile. He's back to his classic ring attire as well. He had this mentor-mentee relationship with JD McDonough, and I believe JD McDonough said that Finn Balor changed the dynamic of the group, basically, and that led to McDonough siding with the Judgment Day against Finn Balor. So that was reversed, and Finn Balor picked up a victory against JD McDonough. Yeah, with a coup de grace. Dominic Mysterio attempted a sneak attack on Balor. However, the attempt backfired, and they all were forced to retreat. They all meaning Mysterio and JD McDonough. Jacob Fatu, in the main event segment, interrupted Roman Reigns' return as the world champion in the middle of the ring. The highlights of that one are basically very limited, primarily because Roman Reigns steps out of the car. He's going to be full-time for now, based on his own comments at the end of night 2. That's a stark contrast, because going into WrestleMania, in an interview with Michael Cole, I believe, he said that if Punk beat him to retain the championship, then Reigns would have nothing more to offer. His work in WWE would be done, which is some grand way to telegraph a victory. And yet, I believe the right decision was made, cemented by Reigns promising that he will be around more often during the summer stretch, which is okay. So Reigns is shown backstage. He then proceeds to make his entrance. At Gorilla, he meets Jimmy and Jey Uso, who were just waiting for him for some reason right there, even though I believe they did not have any appearances before that on the show. I might be wrong, though. So Reigns offers both his cousins to accompany him out because I believe he misses the bloodline. That was my initial belief when I watched it, which was later confirmed when he said as much. He was going to foreshadow the future, give his plans, give an address to the people, and he then shifted gears on the mic after asking the crowd to acknowledge him. He said that he'll handle family business first, which meant that he just told everyone what I thought he would say to the Usos, that he missed the Usos, that he wanted them to join forces again. This is basically some retread of the bloodline, the OG bloodline, which is harmless, I believe, at least in the short term. There can be a nice mix of nostalgia, some good booking. Of course, Reigns framed it as, I want you to stand with me, not serve me. We'll see how far that goes. I think there is still a story thread missing where Reigns was supposed to apologize to the Usos for being manipulative in the beginning, which is absolutely true. In whichever promo you look at from the person challenging the bloodline during that 1-3-1-6 day reign, one of the common complaints of the challengers was that the Usos, in the name of being family, were being treated as lapdogs. I believe Randy Orton had the best line where the big dog, he still called Roman the big dog, I believe sarcastically, he commented that as an insult to condemn Roman, even though he was the tribal chief by then. He said, the big dog led the... I don't want to curse in this in my YouTube videos, so I'll just say, big dog led the B-I-T, chiz, off the leash. So that was the general perception. And Roman Reigns today is framing that as though he will treat the Usos as equals in the family so they can band together and be as strong as before, symbolically showing that when they're not together, they're like an open palm, and when they are together, they're like a fist. A pretty common symbolism right there. Okay, now, before everything could be wrapped up, out came Jacob Fatu. He basically challenged Roman Reigns, said that I don't want to be the tribal chief. I just want everything that the tribal chief has, primarily the title. And accompanying that, he wants the glitz and glamour and the money and the good life that comes along with it. I believe they're making it more realistic and easy to buy into, having recently cited Jacob Fatu's past as some crimes that he committed, and that he was a reformed person, having learned from his mistakes, all of that. I'm not sure how legitimate they wanted to sound. However, Jacob Fatu's delivery here was very believable, which is good. You want your challenger to sound good. I'm not fully sold on the timing of all of this. I believe there could have been someone else who could have challenged Roman Reigns, some unpredictable, unlikely challenger, just as the first chapter of this new reign of Roman. And one interaction between Roman Reigns and CM Punk would have also served me well. However, it didn't happen. It's okay. We already had Punk at the beginning of the show cut a very good promo. Only the Cody part of that was very, very confusing for me, as I stated earlier. Now, Roman replied to Fatu's challenge by questioning Fatu's ability to carry the burden if he goes on to beat Reigns for the title. Along with that, he also says that if Reigns beats Fatu, which is very likely, I mean, who expects Roman Reigns to drop the title so soon after having defeated Punk for it, and also making and cementing the World Heavyweight Championship as a very legitimate title solely for the fact that it is draped around Roman Reigns' shoulders, right? So it's going to be very, very unlikely that Fatu actually succeeds in that. And Roman Reigns conditions the entire thing upon, you will have to acknowledge me as a tribal chief if you lose. Now, that is very, very, you can say, that's a hackneyed old trope in this Bloodline saga. It harkens back to every other time when someone was in the ring and Roman Reigns made them acknowledge him. It's still something that has been going on every time Reigns comes into the ring. He asks the entire crowd to acknowledge him. So it feels like a retread. Already been there, done that. But I suppose some people in the back or some higher-ups, TKO, who knows, they might want to relive the great times because business boomed when Roman and the Bloodline were running roughshod all over WWE. So it might be in hopes that they rekindle some of that, they spark some of that interest from the fans, and they might be wanting to, well, not next year, but they want to be increasing prices as much as they can. They want to stretch that rubber band all the way to repay those corporate debts that apparently that they have to repay. So we'll see how it all goes. This Raw was a medium quality, probably, if I'm being fair. It had some good moments. Sol Ruka's debut, Ethan Page's debut, that's good. The second coming of the Bloodline has its promise that goes along with it, is a little promising. Cody Rhodes being on the show made no sense whatsoever. It just it set up some future interaction and maybe a match between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. Punk came out looking like the winner, even though he was a loser, which was, I believe, the intention of this entire speaking segment. Punk was great as always on the microphone. Recently, he's been more cogent, more clear in his mission statements. That one promo before WrestleMania on the Go Home Raw between Punk and Reigns was my least favorite, where Punk untimely apologized, and the time to apologize would have been earlier, or not apologize at all in his strategy to play mind games with Roman Reigns. Anyhow, Punk was great on this show. The Cody part is underwhelming, as I've previously stated. I'm trying to recall. Yeah, Obafemi, I wish he would have talked more. That is generally the summary. We look forward to the next Raw, and I'm looking forward to the next SmackDown as well, because who knows where the World Championship picture on SmackDown will go next. Cody could be written off for a little while because he's not cleared for competition, as has been repeated many a times. Then you've got Randy Orton, who may or may not show up. His back injury, is it real? Is it not real? Who else could be in the world title picture if Cody Rhodes is unable to compete for Backlash? I think Randy Orton will certainly be there, given the punt kick and him turning face during the match, and then turning heel by virtue of that punt kick, even though everyone was cheering him wildly regardless. So we'll see. It's a very convoluted puzzle that is playing out right now. Remains to be seen. We shall see. And I probably will be back on Friday or Saturday with a review of that. Until next time, this is Duncan Lievi.